faith creates a sense of urgency, right, to do something, but not out of fear, but really out of love and passion. Faith is personal, but not private. Not trying to shine light on light, but continuously trying to shine light in dark places. Faith is something that is lived, not just attended. You will never be without any guidance.
Welcome to this episode of Take a Leap. Join us as we talk to young people who are using their faith to change the world. If you could live anywhere for a year, where would you live?
Probably Hawaii.
That's a good one. What do you love about Hawaii? Have you been there before?
Yes, I've been there on vacation, so it's just tropical and warm and not cold like Utah right now.
Definitely New Zealand because it's super green and green's my favorite color, and I've always wanted to visit there and live there.
Probably go the Bahamas.
Probably Mexico.
Okay, hey guys, this is Ocean, and today we have Jaleesa. So we're just going to hop right into it, and our first question is really fun and easy. It's, if you could live anywhere for a year, where would you live and why?
I would live in probably Mexico City. It's probably where I would live. I've been there, fell in love with it. Really great food, really vibrant city, but also very green to be such a city and inland. Culture's great. So yeah, I definitely would say Mexico City for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. I would probably live in Maui. I love Maui so much, and I would love to live there.
Yeah, I heard it's beautiful. I haven't been, but I heard it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopping right into it, can you tell us a little bit about your faith journey and how it started?
Sure. So my faith journey began in childhood. Grew up with faith-filled parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. But of course, you know, it began in childhood, but it deepened as I came into adulthood, as I really began to understand that faith is not just a belief, but it's also an action, a responsibility, and in my view, a calling. And so over time, faith has become really the lens through which I understand my purpose, especially in terms of leadership and service. So, you know, faith, again, began in childhood, but it is a journey, right? And so it has not been linear or perfect, but it has been like a series of moments where the divine has really invited me to grow and to stretch and to even trust more deeply, especially when I began to start the vision of my nonprofit.
I can definitely relate to that. I also grew up with faith, and I think that going to college and like having my own experiences, it's grown so much more since then. So when you look back at your life, what specific moments of your faith has shaped who you are today?
So when I look back, the moments that shaped me were often the moments that were most challenging, right? Times when I didn't know a door would open, yet, you know, God, the divine, provided. Or times where I've stepped into leadership roles where I felt unprepared for, but grace, right, carried me through. And I would say, you know, being the founder and CEO of Raising a Village Foundation, where we've had seasons of growth and in some sense feeling like famine, seasons of transition or uncertainty, that has been very profound in faith forming my experiences with faith, right? And these moments really taught me, you know, how to lean into the divine for wisdom, how to move with courage, even when clarity was still forming, right? And so those are the moments that really shaped my faith, and to trust what God and I co-created, which is not on my strength alone, right?
Yeah, of course. So can you tell us a little bit about your Raising the Village Foundation?
Yeah, so Raising a Village Foundation is a Washington, D.C. nonprofit that provides high-quality intervention programs and community resources for underserved children and families. And we do that through education, health and wellness, and the arts. And so, you know, it's started or fully launched in 2019 with just me. And now we have staff and a number of school partners, grants and individual donations, all the things that make a nonprofit a nonprofit. So it's grown since then. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that so much. So as you said, Raising a Village Foundation invests heavily on youth leadership. So how have you seen faith motivate young people to serve their communities?
Yeah, so I've absolutely seen faith show up in the young people that we serve. For many of our youth that may be in underserved communities, even if they don't know it or not, they are faithful little people, right? They are resilient, and I think that's a faithful claim and action. And it's something that tells, I think that kind of resilience that I really see as faith, right? Is something that tells them that they matter, that they have a purpose, which then drives them to continue to get better and to be better for themselves and for their families, right? And so I see that resilience or that faith really turn into a capacity to transform spaces in their community, which has been really wonderful. So it's sometimes quiet personal beliefs. Sometimes it's loud and vibrant stick to itiveness, right? That I've seen that has really often been the spark, I think, that has moved these young people from being even passive observers to active change makers in their schools and in their communities. And so raising a village is just the incubator, if you will, to just let that soar and prosper.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that so much. So how does your spiritual perspective influence the way you guide and mentor young people?
My spiritual perspective, I mean, is key in what guides me on how I lead and mentor young people, right? Raising a village, actually started when I was in college. I was at Clark Atlanta University, which is a HBCU, historically black college university in Atlanta, Georgia. And so it is not surprising that my organization is full of young people, not just those that serve, not those that we serve, right? But also a lot of young people that literally serve and work for the organization as what we call driven student corps members or tutors. And so with that in mind, I see every young person from kindergarten to college really as inherently gifted by the divine, right? That carry these kind of unique talents and gifts and graces, right, to do this work. And so my role in terms of mentorship is to just water what's already inside them, right? To guide them with compassion, accountability, also vision. I try to encourage them to lead with integrity, to value community, and to understand that leadership is ultimately a service. And so there are ways in which I do that more directly in conversation that I have with young people. But I also believe in this trickle down, train the trainer piece, where that is something that I instill my directors and my managers and my coordinators to do, so that as they have interactions with young people in the field, right, it's all flowing from this same vision and idea that there is inherently good in young people that should be nourished and flourished.
And I bet that every day you're learning something new from these kids, you're growing in your faith and everything. Do you have a specific example that you can share with us? Youth leader in your program whose faith you helped and make them a difference?
Yeah, so I can talk about kind of two instances. One is actually a young person that we actually serve in our tutoring program, right? So there's one young person who's in middle school that comes to mind, and who initially struggled academically and lacked confidence in their abilities to excel. And through the special relationship that they had with a driven student corps member, a tutor of ours, right, they begin to be more engaged in the tutoring session. They actually start to join leadership activities within the session, right? Making sure that other students were doing what they're supposed to do. And then I saw that trickle, into their leadership activities within schools and clubs and volunteering at events, and then again, mentoring young students. And so when I ended up meeting this young man, and I said, I heard about you, right? And the change you made, what changed? And he said, because somebody believed in me. I'm safe here. I could do whatever I want, and not in a sense of I could do whatever I want in a negative way, but I can do anything, right? I can be anything here. I have confidence here, right? And so that pushed him to, become this leader right before our very eyes. And that's been really wonderful to see. And then on the college mentorship side, or college tutor side, I've just been really blessed to have college students from American University, George Washington University, Howard University, Trinity, Washington. I mean, you name it, all the local universities in DC. And they start with Raising a Village as their first job, right? Many of them have not worked. And they have turned into a driven student guide or core member, which is a tutor, to now a driven student leader where they're managing their own sites, right? And trying to figure out how they can continue to work for the org full time. So I've seen that even, right? Like, I'm just tutoring kids, I'm here for a job. And then before you know it, they become a certified youth worker. And some of them have even gone into apprenticeship programs to become teachers, right? And so, that has been, absolutely mind-blowing to me. You talked about how I learn from young people every day, right? And that was wow. There's a there there, right? There's something here, and it's really around cultivation. And so their faith, helped them show up consistently. And, what I'm seeing is that soon others begin to continue to, come into this leadership pipeline. And so, last thing I'll say is this, Ocean, right? Watching them grow into reliable, compassionate leaders, right, reminds me of how faith, resilience, this ability to have, as they say, right, faith is the evidence of things not seen, right? This ability to look beyond has anchored them to create this sense of identity and mission.
And that really goes right into our next question, which is, why do you think faith often inspires young people to take action rather than stay on the sidelines?
I think faith gives young people something larger than themselves to believe in, right? It invites them into the story of faith, right? Where their gifts matter, their voices have impact. Faith creates, I think, a sense of urgency, right, to do something, but not out of fear, but really out of love and passion to solve a particular problem. And, if you're a person of faith, particularly in the Christian faith, right, Jesus was young, right? He wasn't an old person, right? Even though the people may look at him that way or portray Jesus that way, if that's your faith tradition. But either way, right? I think faith tells young people that their actions can heal, can uplift, can transform. That this sense of calling, I think, faith and faithful calling, I think, pushes them to step off the sidelines and to do something about it.
And I love that you brought up that Jesus was young, because that's what we're trying to do here too, is show that young people of faith can be successful and can change the world. So what spiritual or emotional challenges are young people facing today, and how does your program help them with that?
I would say, today what I encounter is that a lot of young people are navigating anxiety, first and foremost, of such an unstable world. Social pressure to be something and to be something fast, right? Grief of the fact that certain systems and institutions that are supposed to help has begun to hinder folks. Isolation, because though we're connected, it can also feel like we're alone, right? And I've seen that. And I think questions about identity and purpose, I think those are the challenges really that I'm seeing. Anxiety, social pressure, grief, isolation, and questions around identity and purpose. I think many are overwhelmed by the world's problems and unsure where they fit. And so what Raising a Village tries to do is in the name, right? We try to create spaces, community, where young people feel seen, they feel supported, and they feel valued, even if the outside chatter is saying something otherwise. And so we try to connect their emotions to healthy outlets. We try to help them build resilience, and I think to try to strengthen their sense of self while in community, right? Because it's a both and. That's what I see us trying to do, and I think that's just par for the course with our name. Like we start everything in relationship, and so for example, before a student even starts their work with us, we do highs and lows, right? What's going on with you? We'll get to the work, but how are you? That might be the only time in their week that they hear somebody literally ask them, how are you? Right? With our college tutors, we do the same. We do something called pre-brief, right? Before they get their kids and start their small groups, we do a community circle where before you even start with the craziness of our kiddos, what's going on this week? What's the temperature? Are you hot, cold, lukewarm? Give us something, right? Because that's what we're trying to do, is to build a sense of self while in community, right? And that this is a place in which you can do that.
And I think it's so important that you really ask people how they're doing and like expand on that and like show them that you love them, because we just really need that in our world today. How do you encourage youth who feel disconnected from traditional religious institutions but still desire to live a life of faith?
Yeah, I think in more broadly, not just with young people, but many people I think are not absent of spirituality, but it's not tied to an institution. I think maybe because maybe there's a sense that institutions aren't safe to hold their questions, their wanderings, and how they want to live into their faith. And I think that's okay, right? And in the Christian tradition, and I've said this before, that like, in the early church, right, there was no building, right? But Spirit moved with God's people. And so I think institutions have a place. Because I mean, I am clergy, I am a reverend, right? So like, I do believe in institution, clearly, if I went through the ordination process to do that. But I do believe in an institution that is inside out, right? That's turned inside out, right? Not trying to shine light on light, but continuously trying to shine light in dark places. And so I encourage young people who may not be tied to an institution to explore the values at the core of their longing, right? So what I mean by that is like explore the values of community, belonging, service, compassion, justice, because those are spiritual pillars that I think are core to faith. And whether they come through a church, a mentor, or even a moment of quiet reflection, I just want young people to know that faith is something that is lived, not something that is just sat, right, in a church, right? It is lived, or I would say, how about this? Faith is something that is lived, not just attended, right? And so what I've told young people is this: it may not be a church or a synagogue or a temple, but I do believe that we're better in community. And so is there a spiritual advisor or director? Is there someone that you can wrestle this thing with, right? That you can do the wandering? Because we get better. Again, we don't get better in isolation. And faith is communal. So if it's not in a church, that's fine. But where can you find faithful community and go there? Because, I believe that faith is personal, but not private. And we can't privatize faith, right? So that's what I would say to young folks that maybe feel disconnected to traditional religion.
And I think that a lot of the time people are scared of traditional religion because they have questions, and they are scared that they maybe don't believe because they have questions. But I think that it's so important to have questions, because you really can't truly dive deep into the religion if you don't have questions. So as we wrap up, do you have one piece of spiritual advice to young people doing their best to change the world?
I would say stay rooted in something deeper than the moment, right? With the world will shift, challenges will come, right? And even your sense of direction may waver because we're human, right? But I think if you stay grounded in your values and in the divine's presence and in the truth of who you are, you will never be without any guidance, right? And so if you just stay rooted into something deeper, and then the moment that means that you are living in your purpose, that means you are loving boldly, right? And that there's a sense of trust that every step you may take will have its own unfolding, right? So that's what I would say. Like, stay rooted.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, take a leap and share it with your friends and family. And follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Take a Leap is a production of BYU Radio. I'm Ocean Marshall, and our production team includes James Sturdivant, Aaliyah Alexander, Heidi Hansen, and Neftali Rodriguez.